Hey guys, tonight, we're stepping back in time, not to the clashing swords and epic battles you might expect from a samurai story, but to the quiet, introspective world of a warrior who fundamentally redefined what it meant to live by the blade. Forget the blood and thunder for a moment. Our journey tonight takes us into the secret morning routine of a samurai who, surprisingly, didn't like fighting. Imagine being born into a world defined by conflict, where your very existence is predicated on mastery of warfare, yet your deepest desire is for peace. It's a paradox, isn't it? This isn't the epic saga of a ronin seeking vengeance. The nuanced, gentle tale of a man seeking inner harmony in a world that constantly demanded violence. You're about to discover how a warrior found his true strength not in combat, but in contemplation. You might think preparing for bed involves simply closing your eyes. But for our samurai, it was the culmination of a day lived with profound intention. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always cool to see how far these bedtime history trips reach, connecting us across time and space. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together, into the quiet, disciplined world of a gentle warrior. Our story begins not with the thunder of hooves or the clang of steel, but with the first faint blush of dawn over ancient Japan. Specifically, during the relatively stable, though still martial, Edo period, this was an era where the samurai class, though theoretically at the apex of society, found their traditional roles shifting. With prolonged periods of peace enforced by the Tokugawa shogunate, many samurai were less engaged in direct warfare and more in administration, arts, and philosophy. Our protagonist, let's call him Kenji, was one such individual, born into a respected samurai family. Yet from an early age, he harbored a deep aversion to violence. This wasn't a weakness. It was a deeply held philosophical stance, an almost radical interpretation of the warrior's code, Bushido. Most people assume Bushido is all about fighting honorably, but Kenji sought its core in discipline, self-mastery, and moral rectitude. It's not just skill in killing. Kenji's secret routine began long before the average household stirred. While his peers might be sleeping off a late night of revelry or preparing for rigorous sword practice, Kenji's alarm clock was the subtle shift in light from the eastern sky. He believed that the first moments of the day held a unique purity, untainted by the distractions and demands that would soon descend upon the waking world. This was his sacred time, his personal sanctuary, a period for profound connection with his inner self and the natural world around him. He wasn't avoiding his duties. He was preparing himself to meet them with a clarity and calm that few could achieve. It's a bit like someone today waking up at 4 a.m. to meditate before their demanding corporate job. Only with more emphasis on katana maintenance later, his morning wasn't about sharpening his blade for a duel. It was about sharpening his mind and spirit. The very first act upon rising, even before the meticulous folding of his futon, was a series of slow, deliberate breaths. You can imagine him, sitting cross-legged on the cool tatami mats, eyes gently closed, focusing solely on the rise and fall of his abdomen. Min. This wasn't just breathing. It was choshoku, a form of controlled breathing, a rudimentary meditative practice designed to settle the mind and bring it into the present moment. In a world fraught with political intrigue and the constant undercurrent of potential conflict, this stillness was his anchor. It allowed him to observe his thoughts without judgment, letting them drift by like clouds across a vast, empty sky. Historians still debate the precise origins of many samurai spiritual practices, but the influence of Zen Buddhism on their daily routines is a mainstream historical fact, emphasizing stillness and self-awareness. Following his breathing exercises, Kenji would engage in a brief period of silent contemplation. This wasn't prayer in a formal religious sense, but rather a quiet reflection on his intentions for the day. He wouldn't list tasks. Instead, He would consider his virtues, his responsibilities, and how he could embody them without resorting to the violence he disdained. He was, in essence, setting a moral compass for the coming hours. He'd reflect on the fragility of life, the interconnectedness of all beings, and his place within that grand tapestry. It was a private moment of deep ethical grounding away. To fortify himself against the expectations of a warrior society, quirky tidbit. Some accounts suggest certain samurai would use a single, perfectly smooth river stone as a focus during their morning meditation, feeling its cool weight in there. Palm to anchor their thoughts, a simple, tactile connection to the earth. Kenji might have had such a stone, perhaps tucked away discreetly in his kimono. This dedication to an inner life wasn't what most people expected of a samurai. The stereotype was all about the sword, the unwavering loyalty, the readiness for death. But Kenji was forging a different path, one where the greatest battles were fought within, against one's own impulses and weaknesses. His morning routine was the foundation of this personal revolution, silent rebellion against the external pressures to conform to a purely aggressive warrior archetype. It was his secret strength, the wellspring from which his surprising resolve flowed. He sought to perfect himself, not just as a fighter, but as a human being. So as the rest of the world slowly began to stir, Kenji was already miles ahead, deeply rooted in a serenity that would guide his every action. Following the quiet discipline of his breathing exercises and morning contemplation, Kenji would transition to another cornerstone of his unique routine: the preparation and performance of Chenyu, the Japanese tea ceremony. You might think of it as just making a cup of tea, but for Kenji, and for many samurai of his era, was a profound meditative practice, moving meditation that embodied the very principles of Zen Buddhism: harmony wa, respect kai, purity. Sei and tranquility. Yaku. This wasn't about caffeine. It was about mindfulness, a deliberate engagement with every single detail of the moment. The setting itself was crucial. Kenji's tea room was spare, minimalist, designed to remove all distractions. You can imagine him kneeling on the cool tatami, the only sounds the soft rustle of his silk kimono and the gentle bubbling of the water in the iron kettle over the hibachi. Every movement was precise, deliberate, and imbued with intention. The selection of the tea bowl, the whisking of the matcha, the serving of the tea, each step was a microcosm of the universe, demanding complete focus and presence. There was no rushing, no hurried gestures. It was a dance of tranquility, a ballet of everyday objects performed with a quiet grace that reflected his inner state. This rigorous attention to detail in everyday life is a mainstream historical fact, deeply rooted in Zen philosophy and practiced by many samurai and artists. This focus on the present moment, on the meticulous execution of each small task, was Kenji's way of battling the chaos and anxieties of the outside world. When you are entirely absorbed in whisking a bowl of tea, the political machinations of the shogunate, the threat of civil unrest, or the weight of samurai expectations fade away. It's a powerful form of escapism, not by ignoring reality, but by fully immersing oneself in a controlled, beautiful reality of one's own making. It teaches patience, precision, and an appreciation for the simple beauty found in the mundane. A quirky tidbit about tea ceremony: historically, some tea masters would include a single, slightly imperfect item in their tea set, deliberately choosing a bowl with a small chip or an uneven glaze. This was to remind participants of the beauty of imperfection, wabi-sabi, a direct counterpoint to the pursuit of unattainable perfection, and a way to embrace the natural cycle of decay and renewal. Kenji, with his aversion to the harsh realities of perfection through violence, would have deeply appreciated this subtle philosophical gesture. The tea ceremony also served as a moment of sensory awakening. The earthy aroma of the matcha, the warmth of the tea bowl against his hands, the subtle bitterness and sweetness of the tea on his tongue, the soft green hue of the whisked liquidol, these sensory inputs were experienced fully, without distraction. It was a conscious act of engaging with the world through its most subtle manifestations, training his perception to notice the small, often overlooked details that make up the richness of life. This heightened awareness wasn't just for enjoying tea. It sharpened his observational skills, making him more attuned to his surroundings, even outside the tea room. A valuable asset for any samurai, gentle or otherwise. Historians still debate the extent to which the tea ceremony, particularly during the Edo period, remained a pure spiritual practice versus becoming a social art form for status display. For Kenji, it was undoubtedly the former, a personal spiritual discipline. You might wonder how this fits into the life of a samurai. Wouldn't his lord expect him to be out practicing his sword swings or strategizing for battle? Indeed, many samurai would have. But Kenji understood that true strength came not from brute force, but from a disciplined mind and a composed spirit. The calmness cultivated in the tea room translated directly into a steady hand, a clear head, and an unwavering resolve when facing challenges. Be they administrative tasks, delicate negotiations, or in rare and unavoidable circumstances, even conflict. The control learned in pouring hot water extended to controlling one's own emotions and reactions under pressure. This routine wasn't about avoiding the world. It was about preparing to meet it with a different kind of strength. It was about developing an inner fortress, an unshakable calm that no external storm could penetrate. As the soft glow of the early morning sun filled his tea room, Kenji was not just enjoying a bowl of tea, he was fortifying his soul, preparing to embody the highest ideals of Bushido. Not as a killer, but as a guardian of peace and order. This meticulous, daily ritual was his secret weapon, allowing him to navigate a warrior's world on his own terms. With dignity and grace, living his commitment to a path less traveled, his preference for the quiet hum of the kettle over the clang of steel was in itself a profound statement. Calligraphy of the Salafter, the serene communion of the tea ceremony. Kenji's morning routine would lead him to another deeply meaningful practice: calligraphy. You might think of it as just writing, perhaps a chore, but for Kenji, brushstrokes were a profound form of moving meditation, a direct extension of the inner calm he cultivated during breathing and tea. This wasn't about composing a quick memo. It was about pouring his entire being, his concentration, and his spirit into each stroke of the ink. His calligraphy studio was as spare as his tea room, a low wooden table, a pristine white paper scroll, a block of solid ink, a stone inkstone, and a carefully chosen brush. You can imagine him kneeling, the soft light from the shoshi screen illuminating his hands. The process began with the ink. He would take the ink stick and with slow rhythmic movements grind it against the inkstone, gradually adding drops of water. This simple act of grinding the ink was a preparatory meditation in itself, a process of patience and focus, much like the whisking of tea. The rhythmic motion, the subtle scent of the ink, the gradual thickening of the liquid all served to clear his mind and bring him entirely into the present moment. It's a bit like a modern artist carefully mixing paints, but with centuries of philosophical weight behind each swirl. Once the ink was ready, rich and dark, he would select his brush. This wasn't just any brush, it was an extension of his hand. His arm, his very being, holding it, he would pause, taking a deep breath, visualizing the character or phrase he intended to write, and then, with a single, unbroken flow, the brush would meet the paper. Each stroke required total concentration, a perfect balance of strength and lightness, a dance between control and spontaneity. There was no erasing, no going back. Every line, every curve, was a permanent mark, a testament to that moment's clarity or lack thereof. This absolute commitment to the present is a mainstream historical fact. Deeply embedded in Japanese arts like calligraphy and brush painting sumi, drawing heavily from Zen and Taoist philosophies, for Kenji, calligraphy was never about creating a perfect, flawless character in the aesthetic sense. Instead, it was about achieving a perfect state of mind while creating the character. The beauty of the final script was merely a reflection of the inner peace and focus of the artist. If his mind was agitated, the strokes would reveal it, nervous, unsteady, lacking harmony. If his mind was calm and centered, the characters would flow effortlessly, imbued with a quiet power. This made each session a profound lesson in self-awareness. a mirror reflecting his internal landscape. He wasn't just practicing his brushwork, he was practicing himself. This practice also held a deeper philosophical meaning. The character of Bushido, the warrior's code itself, is often written in calligraphy. Might write it to signify their martial prowess. Kenji would write it to emphasize the Duthaway, or path, focusing on the ethical and spiritual journey rather than just the bushy, the warrior aspect. He might practice characters for peace, here, harmony, who, was, reflecting his personal philosophy. It was a silent daily affirmation of his chosen path, reinforcing his commitment to a life beyond overt violence. A quirky tidbit. Some calligraphy masters believe that the quality of the ink, ground by the artists themselves, held the key or life force of the writer, and that this energy was transferred to the paper through the brush. For Kenji, this would have lent an even deeper spiritual resonance to his morning ritual. The discipline cultivated in calligraphy, the patience, the precision, the unwavering focus, the acceptance of imperfection translated directly into his everyday life. It helped him to approach complex administrative tasks with a clear mind, to navigate social interactions with grace, to face unexpected challenges with a calm, centered presence. His hand trained to hold a delicate brush with such control was also the hand that would later manage his clan's affairs with meticulous accuracy. Historians still debate the extent to which the practice of arts like calligraphy was merely a pastime for samurai during peaceful times versus an integral part of their spiritual training for self-mastery, regardless of immediate combat needs. For Kenji, it was unequivocally a path to self-mastery. As the sun began to rise higher, filling his studio with brighter light, Kenji would conclude his calligraphy session, leaving the completed scroll to dry. He wouldn't dwell on any perceived imperfections. Instead, he would appreciate the effort, the presence, and the quiet act of creation. It was yet another layer in his secret morning routine, building an inner foundation of peace and discipline, preparing him not for the battlefield, but for a life lived with unwavering purpose and a gentle heart. From the focused precision of calligraphy, Kenji would often step into his garden of contemplation. For many samurai, their gardens were a place of strategic design, perhaps reflecting military formations or showcasing exotic plants acquired through daring exploits. But for Kenji, his garden was a sacred space, a microcosm of the universe, designed not for display, but for deep, mindful connection with nature and its profound lessons. Was his outdoor dojo for the soul, a place where he truly understood the meaning of growth and decay without the immediate threat of violence. His garden was typically a karasansui dry landscape garden, characterized by carefully raked gravel or sand, rocks, moss, and sometimes a few carefully placed trees or shrubs. There were no vibrant, distracting flower beds, no elaborate ponds. Its beauty lay in its austere simplicity. Reflecting the Zen aesthetic of wabi-sabi, the beauty found in imperfection and transience. You can imagine Kenji after his indoor rituals, stepping onto the polished wooden veranda overlooking this serene landscape. The cool morning air, the subtle scent of damp earth and moss, the quiet rustle of leaves all engaged his senses in a gentle, grounding way. His primary activity in the garden was raking the gravel. This wasn't just a chore. It was a deeply meditative practice. With a wooden rake, he would meticulously draw patterns in the white gravel, creating ripples and swirls that symbolized water, or straight lines representing vast, empty plains. Each stroke of the rake required complete attention, a steady hand, and a calm mind. If his mind wandered, the lines would become uneven, the patterns distorted. The act of raking was a direct feedback loop for his internal state, taught him patience, repetition, and the acceptance of impermanence, as the patterns he so carefully created would eventually be disturbed by wind or rain, or simply raked anew the next day. This constant act of creation and dissolution mirrored the cycles of life and death, reinforcing his understanding of the transient nature of all things, including conflict. This practice, often associated with Zen temples, was adopted by many samurai for its mental discipline. a mainstream historical fact. The rocks in his garden were never merely rocks. Each stone was carefully chosen and placed, representing mountains, islands, or even abstract concepts. Kenji would sit and observe them for long periods, reflecting on their stillness, their enduring presence through seasons and storms. They were teachers of resilience, silent masters of stability. He would contemplate the tiny mosses clinging to their surfaces, hardy and vibrant even in the shade, representing life's tenacious spirit. He also paid attention to the interplay of light and shadow, constantly shifting throughout the morning, reminding him that nothing is fixed, everything is in flux. A quirky tidbit: some Zen garden masters would deliberately place a rock or a shrub in such a way that it was only fully visible from one specific vantage point, encouraging the viewer to move, explore, and change their perspective, symbolizing the different truths found by shifting one's viewpoint. Kenji would have enjoyed this playful challenge to perception. His garden was also a place for contemplation on Bushido, but again, through his unique lens. The concept of the sword, often symbolized as a sharp, destructive force, might in his garden be represented by a single, slender bamboo stalk, flexible, enduring, yet capable of strength when needed, without seeking confrontation. The path of the warrior, for Kenji, was not one of conquering others, but of conquering oneself, of finding inner peace and moral integrity even amidst external strife. The tranquility of the garden was his battlefield, and his weapon was self-awareness. The lessons learned in the garden: patience from raking, stillness from the rocks, adaptability from the changing light, were directly applicable to his interactions as a samurai. This deep connection to the natural world fostered a sense of humility and interconnectedness, making him a more empathetic and less aggressive leader. It allowed him to approach difficult decisions with a calm, unclouded mind, and to face the demands of his position with a spirit rooted in enduring peace rather than fleeting power. Historians still debate the extent to which these contemplative practices genuinely altered the aggressive nature of the samurai class or merely provided a counterbalance during times of peace. For Kenji, it was clearly a transformative force. As the sun rose higher, casting longer shadows across his meticulously raked gravel, Kenji would rise, his mind refreshed, his spirit grounded. His garden was not just a place of beauty, it was a sanctuary, where a warrior who disliked fighting found profound strength and wisdom, preparing him to navigate the complex social landscape of Edo Japan with a quiet dignity that belied his martial title, having found profound stillness in meditation, focus in calligraphy, and wisdom in his garden. Kenji would then turn his attention to the very symbol of his station, the sword. But this wasn't about the blossom and blade in the way most samurai understood it, as a tool for combat or a symbol of readiness for death. For Kenji, his katana was not primarily a weapon, but a conduit for discipline, a work of art, a profound philosophical teacher. He viewed the blade as a reflection of its maker's skill and its owner's spirit, a powerful symbol of potential rather than actualized violence. His approach to his sword, the katana, was deeply ritualistic and mindful. This wasn't the frantic, aggressive sharpening of a blade before battle. Instead, Kenji would engage in a meticulous process of cleaning and maintaining his sword, sometimes for an hour or more. You can imagine him carefully laying out the cleaning cloth, the oil, and the powder ball on a pristine surface. With slow, deliberate movements, he would draw the blade from its scabbard, revealing the shimmering steel. Every inch was then carefully inspected, wiped clean, and then lightly oiled. This wasn't just practical maintenance, it was a form of active meditation, a tactile engagement with an object that embodied his warrior identity. The precise, repetitive motions quieted his mind, forcing him to be completely present with the task at hand. This meticulous care of the sword, often a family heirloom, is a mainstream historical fact among samurai, signifying respect and readiness. For Kenji, the act of polishing the blade wasn't about honing its destructive potential. It was about revealing its inherent beauty, the subtle patterns in the steel hamon and hada that spoke of its forging history. He saw the sword as a testament to craftsmanship, a product of immense skill and patience. He would contemplate the layers of steel folded countless times, forged in fire and water, becoming both incredibly strong and incredibly flexible. This process mirrored his own life, the forging of his character through discipline, the tempering of his spirit through challenges, making him strong yet adaptable, without resorting to brittleness or aggression. The sword was a silent teacher of balance, a quirky tidbit. Some samurai would use a single, polished Tsuba sword guard as a focal point for meditation, admiring its intricate design as a testament to human creativity and patience, rather than its defensive function. Kenji might have done this, finding beauty in the guard's artistry. He rarely, if ever, engaged in tamashigiri test cutting on living targets, or even straw dummies. For him, the purpose of the sword was not its capacity for destruction, but its capacity for self-mastery. He might practice kata prearranged forms with his blade, but these were slow, deliberate movements, focusing on posture, balance, and the flow of energy, rather than speed or force. Each movement was a lesson in control, a physical manifestation. Of his inner discipline, the sword became a tool for self-perfection, a way to harmonize mind and body rather than an instrument of violence. He sought to embody the principle of mushin no mind, a state of effortless flow and awareness, not to strike down an opponent, but to achieve perfect composure. Historians still debate the extent to which peaceful samurai truly avoided combat training. Most would have maintained proficiency. But Kenji's emphasis was clearly on the spiritual aspect. This unique relationship with his sword deeply influenced his interpretation of Bushido. For Kenji, the true way of the warrior was not about fighting to win, but about fighting not to fight if possible. By cultivating such an unshakable presence and moral authority, that conflict could be averted. If conflict was unavoidable, then his training ensured he would act with precision and clarity, minimizing harm rather than seeking glory or vengeance. His blade, always impeccably maintained, was a constant reminder of his profound responsibility, not just to his lord or clan, but to life itself. It was the ultimate symbol of restraint. As the morning sun climbed higher, Kenji would sheathe his now perfectly maintained katana, sliding it back into its scabbard with a soft click. He wouldn't feel the thirst for battle, but a deep sense of quiet strength, a calm confidence that came from within. His morning ritual with the blade wasn't about preparing for war, but about affirming his path as a warrior who found his truest strength and peace, embodying the profound connection between the disciplined mind and the symbolic. Rather than destructive power of the sword, the blossom representing transient beauty in life, and the blade representing ultimate potential and discipline, Hubbard harmoniously intertwined in his philosophy. With his blade returned to its scabbard, imbued with the quiet discipline of his care, Kenji's morning continued to unfold. Not in martial training as one might expect, but in the contemplative world of poetry and philosophy. For many samurai, their education centered on military strategy and feudal law. But for Kenji, cultivating the mind through art and ancient wisdom was as essential, if not more so, than sharpening any blade. He understood that true strength lay not just in physical prowess, but in intellectual depth and emotional intelligence. His study was a tranquil space, filled with scrolls and a low writing table. He might open an ancient collection of waka poetry, perhaps the Man Yoshu or the Koken Wakash, or delve into the philosophical texts of Zen Buddhism or Confucianism. This wasn't casual reading, it was active engagement, a slow, deliberate absorption of wisdom. He would often read aloud softly, allowing the rhythm and cadence of the words to resonate within him like a soothing chant. He found particular resonance in poems that spoke of the beauty of nature, the transience of life, or the quiet dignity of a person living in harmony with the world. This deep appreciation for classical literature and philosophy was a mainstream historical fact for many educated samurai, especially during the Edo period's extended piece. Poetry, especially haiku or waka, offered Kenji a condensed form of meditation. The act of reading, or even composing a short poem, required intense observation, and the distillation of a complex feeling or image into a few precise words. He might spend a long time contemplating a single line, allowing its meaning to unfold. Within him, his practice sharpened his mind, improved his perception, and fostered an appreciation for subtlety and nuance. Qualities invaluable in diplomacy and leadership, far more so than brute force. A quirky tidbit: some samurai would carry a small writing set, Sejimino, containing a brush and inkstone specifically for composing impromptu haiku, while on journeys or during moments of reflection in nature, turning observation into immediate artistic expression. Kenji would have been one of them, capturing a fleeting moment of peace. His philosophical studies were equally profound. He would engage with the teachings of Confucius, focusing on concepts of duty, giri, righteousness, gi, and benevolent governance. For Kenji, these ethical principles were the true bedrock of Bushido. A samurai's duty was not just to fight for his lord, but to serve his people, to act with integrity, and to foster social harmony. He saw himself as a guardian of order and justice, not simply a killing machine. He also delved into Zen Buddhist texts, seeking to deepen his understanding of concepts like Mushin no mind, Fudushun, immovable mind, and the interconnectedness of all things. These teachings provided the spiritual framework for his aversion to unnecessary violence, grounding his actions in compassion and wisdom. Historians still debate the precise balance of influence between Confucianism, Shintoism, and various Buddhist sects on the development and interpretation of Bushido over time. For Kenji, it was a tapestry of wisdom leading him towards inner peace. This intellectual cultivation wasn't a diversion from his samurai duties. It was an integral part of his preparation. A samurai who understood philosophy could mediate disputes more effectively, govern his domain with greater wisdom, and inspire loyalty through respect rather than fear. Kenji knew that true leadership came from a cultivated mind and a compassionate heart, not just a sharp sword. His morning sessions with scrolls and quiet reflection were his way of building these inner muscles, making him a more formidable presence in the world. Even without drawing his blade, as the morning light grew stronger, Kenji would carefully roll up his scrolls, placing them back in their wooden boxes. His mind was now brimming not with strategies of war, but with ideas of harmony, duty, and beauty. Wasn't just a warrior who didn't like fighting. He was a scholar warrior, a philosopher with a sword, embodying a deeper, richer interpretation of Bushido. His dedication to poetry and philosophy ensured that his inner world was as disciplined and beautiful as the external world he sought to protect, preparing him to face the day's challenges with a quiet intellect and a compassionate spirit. From the intellectual depths of poetry and philosophy, Kenji's morning routine might occasionally shift to a physical practice, but not in the way one might typically envision a samurai's training. He would turn to the way of the bow, kaido, but for him, archery was a profound spiritual discipline, not simply a method of warfare. While the bow was undeniably a weapon capable of lethal force, for Kenji its true purpose was to cultivate focus, stillness, and perfect unity of mind, body, and spirit. His practice would take place in a quiet, secluded kaido-yo, archery hall, or an outdoor range, often at the edge of his family's estate. You can imagine him standing before the target, the soft morning light illuminating the simple elegance of his wooden longbow, yumi, and bamboo arrows. Yeah. The ritual began long before the arrow was loosed.
Oh, yeah.
Every step of the hasitsu, the 8 stages of shooting, was performed with absolute precision and mindfulness. From the moment he grasped the bow ashibumi, foot placement to the drawing of the string to his cheek kai, the full draw, each movement was a deliberate act of meditation, was a fluid dance, a moving prayer, demanding total presence and concentration. There was no hurriedness, no tension in his movements. It's only a quiet, flowing energy. This structured spiritual approach to archery is a mainstream historical fact, deeply rooted in Zen Buddhist philosophy and practiced by samurai and monks alike. For Kenji, the goal was not to hit the target. Indeed, he often wouldn't even aim for the bullseye. His true target was himself. To achieve a state of mushin no mind, where the act of shooting became effortless and spontaneous, a direct expression of his inner being. If his mind was clear and his spirit composed, the arrow would fly true of its own accord. If he harbored doubt, anger, or distraction, the arrow would reveal it, veering off course. The bow became a mirror, reflecting his internal state, a constant teacher of self-awareness. It was a powerful tool for self-discipline, far more than for aggression. Got quirky tidbit. In Kaido, sometimes practitioners will stand with their eyes closed for a few moments before releasing the arrow, trusting their ingrained form and intuitive connection to the bow rather than purely visual aim, symbolizing reliance on inner harmony. Kenji, with his deep focus on inner calm, would have found this practice particularly resonant. The act of drawing the powerful Yumi, which required considerable strength, taught him controlled power. It was about releasing tension while maintaining inner strength, much like the paradox of a samurai who chooses peace. The release of the arrow hana was a moment of absolute surrender, letting go of attachment to the outcome, trusting in the process itself. This detachment from results and focus on the purity of the action was a core Zen principle that Kenji embraced. He understood that in life, as in archery, one cannot control the outcome, only the integrity of one's actions. This spiritual approach to Kaido directly shaped his interpretation of the warrior's path. While his peers might see archery as a means to slay enemies, Kenji saw it as a means to master the self. The bow became a symbol of his inner discipline, his unwavering focus, his ability to act with purpose without succumbing to aggression. It taught him patience, precision, and the art of effortless action, skills that were invaluable not just for physical combat, which he sought to avoid, but for navigating complex court politics or mediating disputes. He learned to be present, to observe, and to act decisively when necessary, but always from a place of inner calm. Historians still debate the specific evolution of Kaido from a purely martial art to a spiritual due path. But Kenji represents the epitome of this philosophical shift. As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the archery range, Kenji would gently unstring his bow and meticulously clean it. He felt no pride in hitting a distant target, but immense satisfaction in the perfect execution of each form. Knowing that he had cultivated another layer of inner harmony, his time with the bow was a profound reaffirmation of his chosen way, preparing him to face the day not with the force of an arrow, but with the unwavering precision and serenity of a spirit truly at peace. It was his unique interpretation of what it meant to be a samurai, embodying strength through stillness, to precision through profound presence. Beyond the structured arts of tea, calligraphy, and archery, Kenji's morning routine extended into a broader yet equally mindful practice of martial arts. Mindful practice. Unlike the typical samurai, whose training revolved around perfecting lethal techniques for immediate combat, Kenji approached his martial arts not as preparation for aggression, but as a path to mastery over himself, a method for cultivating mental fortitude, physical control, and spiritual balance. For him, the dojo was a laboratory of self-discovery, not a proving ground for violence. His martial arts practice was characterized by slow, deliberate movements, focusing on body mechanics, breath control, and the flow of key life energy. He might engage in unarmed akitsu forms, emphasizing blending with an opponent's movements and redirecting force, rather than meeting it head-on. Or he might practice iedo, the art of drawing and resheathing the katana, but with a profound emphasis on the presence of mind zanjin and the continuous flow of energy, rather than the speed of the draw. These were not about winning a fight. They were about achieving perfect composure and efficiency of movement, even under the imagined pressure of confrontation. This mindful, spiritual approach to martial arts, prioritizing inner development over combat application, is a mainstream historical fact that gained prominence during the Edo period's relative peace, evolving alongside Zen philosophy. For Kenji, every block, every strike, every shift in stance was a lesson in self-awareness. He would scrutinize his own movements, identifying any tension, any hesitation, any deviation from perfect form. He sought to eliminate unnecessary effort, to move with fluid grace and economy. This self-correction was his battle, refining his internal landscape rather than conquering an external foe. He believed that true mastery came from effortless action, a state where mind and body were so perfectly aligned that skill manifested spontaneously. It's like a dancer meticulously practicing a single move hundreds of times, not to win a competition, but to embody pure grace. A quirky tidbit. Some samurai would practice martial arts in complete darkness, or with their eyes closed, to sharpen their other senses and develop an intuitive understanding of space and movement, relying entirely on their internal ki and awareness. Kenji might have dabbled in such practices, seeking to transcend mere physical sight and develop a deeper, almost mystical connection to his movements. This pushed the boundaries of traditional martial training, making it a truly internal art. Historians still debate how widespread these esoteric practices were among mainstream samurai. The discipline cultivated in this mindful martial practice extended far beyond the dojo. It honed his ability to remain calm under pressure, to react intuitively without emotional turmoil, and to maintain an unwavering presence in challenging situations. This was crucial for a samurai who didn't like fighting. It gave him the inner composure to de-escalate conflicts, to navigate tense negotiations, to project an aura of quiet strength that deterred aggression without resorting to overt threats. His mastery was in his control, not his destructiveness. He understood that true martial prowess lay in the ability to resolve conflict without violence, and if violence was unavoidable, to end it swiftly and cleanly with minimal harm. His morning martial arts were not about preparing for death, but for a life lived with integrity and purpose. They were about building an unshakable inner core, a foundation of peace that allowed him to stand firm in a turbulent world. As the sun streamed into his dojo, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, Kenji moved with a quiet power, a living testament to the idea that the greatest warrior is one who has mastered himself. He was training to be a guardian, a protector, rather than a conqueror, embodying a profound reinterpretation of the samurai ideal. After the individual pursuits of his morning routine, Kenji would often turn his attention to the broader community, integrating his personal philosophy into his interactions. His morning, therefore, wasn't just about self-perfection. It was about preparing to embody community and compassion in his daily life. Specifically in his interactions with villagers and his role as protector, unlike the often aloof or even tyrannical image of some samurai, Kenji saw his position as one of profound service and responsibility, a direct application of the Zen and Confucian ideals he cultivated. His first interactions of the day would often be with the common folk on his family's estate or in the nearby village. You can imagine him, in his simpler, non-ceremonial kimono, walking through the village at an early hour, not as an imposing figure of authority, but as a quiet, observant presence. He wouldn't demand obeisance. Instead, he might stop to speak with a farmer tending his fields, offering a word of encouragement or inquire about the health of an elderly villager. These interactions were genuine, rooted in his belief that a true samurai protected not just his lord's lands, but his people, fostering their well-being and prosperity. This proactive engagement with the common people, rather than maintaining a strict distance, was a hallmark of benevolent samurai leadership. A mainstream historical fact for enlightened feudal lords, his compassion was practical. If a dispute arose among villagers, Kenji wouldn't resort to immediate judgment or punishment. Instead, he would listen patiently, offering guidance and seeking to mediate a peaceful resolution. He believed that harmony within the community was paramount, and that justice was best served through understanding and compromise rather than harsh decree. He often applied the principles of Wa harmony from the tea ceremony to these everyday interactions, seeking to find common ground and restore balance. It's like a community organizer, but with a katana waiting in the next room, which probably made his suggestions quite persuasive. A quirky tidbit: Kenji might have often carried a small bag of dried persimmons or rice cakes, subtly offering them to children he met, or leaving them discreetly for an impoverished family. These small, unheralded acts of kindness were not for show. They were a quiet manifestation of his compassionate heart, a personal way of alleviating hardship without seeking recognition. This quiet benevolence, rather than public charity, further underscored his genuine concern for his people. Historians still debate the true prevalence of such compassionate acts among the samurai class. Given the harsh realities of feudal life, philosophical texts certainly encouraged them. His role as a protector extended beyond physical defense. He protected the villagers from arbitrary injustices, from oppressive taxes, and from the ravages of famine or disease. He would meticulously oversee the distribution of resources, ensuring fairness, and if necessary, intercede on their behalf. With higher authorities, saw the samurai's power as a tool to uplift and secure his people, not to dominate them. This sense of duty and benevolent governance was directly informed by his Confucian studies, which emphasized the ruler's moral obligation to the ruled. These daily interactions, though seemingly mundane, were as vital to Kenji's interpretation of Bushido as any martial practice. They were his way of actualizing his philosophy, of living out his commitment to peace and service. He understood that true strength came from the loyalty and prosperity of his people, not from their fear. His morning routine prepared him for these human connections, allowing him to approach them with a clear mind and an open heart. As the sun climbed higher, signaling the start of the formal day, Kenji would return to his residence, prepared for administrative duties or official meetings. But he carried with him the quiet satisfaction of having engaged with his community from a place of compassion and respect. His morning rituals allowed him to step into his role as a samurai, not as a distant, fearsome warrior, but as a grounded, empathetic leader, ensuring that the way of the warrior was, for him, truly a path of peace and protection, even for a samurai. Like Kenji, who cultivated peace and disliked fighting, life in feudal Japan presented inevitable challenges of peace. While the Edo period brought extended stability, it was a stability enforced by strict social hierarchies and the ever-present threat of a return to conflict. For a warrior whose personal philosophy diverged from the aggressive stereotype, navigating this world without embracing violence was a constant test of his convictions. It was like being a pacifist chef in a gladiatorial arena. You know how to cook, but everyone expects you to fight. One of the primary challenges was maintaining respect and authority within the samurai class, without resorting to overt displays of martial prowess. In a society where a samurai's status was intrinsically linked to his ability to fight and willingness to die, Kenji's aversion to combat could be misconstrued as weakness or cowardice. He couldn't simply opt out. He had to find ways to command respect through other virtues. He achieved this through his impeccable self-discipline, his profound knowledge of classical arts and philosophy, his fairness in governance, and his unwavering composure even in tense situations. His quiet strength was often more intimidating than a loud roar. His ability to command respect through non-martial virtues was a rare, but recognized quality among certain high-minded samurai, a mainstream historical fact in the nuanced understanding of bus. Another challenge was the pressure to conform to societal expectations. His peers might challenge him to duels, which he would gracefully decline or diffuse, or mock his dedication to seemingly soft arts like tea and poetry. He might be pressured to participate in punitive expeditions or to embrace a more aggressive stance in clan politics. Kenji had to possess immense inner conviction to consistently choose his peaceful path without compromising his integrity or his duty to his lord. It was a delicate tightrope walk, balancing personal ideals with social obligations. Imagine trying to explain your vegan diet to a group of ancient mediating warriors. It's a social minefield. The potential for sudden conflict was also a continuous, underlying threat. Even during the Edo period, rebellions, clan disputes, or conflicts with foreign powers could erupt. While Kenji detested fighting, he was still a samurai and had a duty to his lord and domain. He couldn't simply lay down his sword. His internal struggle was how to be prepared for necessary defense without cultivating a mindset of aggression. He relied on his mindful martial practices to maintain proficiency, not for offensive warfare, but for swift, decisive, and defensive action. should it become absolutely unavoidable. This internal dilemma of duty versus desire is a timeless human struggle, exacerbated for a warrior who values peace. A quirky tidbit to avoid direct confrontation. Some peace-loving samurai would cultivate a formidable reputation not through violence, but through their intense aura of stillness and unwavering gaze, a concept known as fudushin, or immovable mind. They would stand so calmly, radiating such complete self-mastery that opponents would feel disarmed or intimidated without a single blow being struck. Kenji would have perfected this, making his peaceful presence his most potent defense. Historians still debate whether this was a genuine psychological tactic or largely a literary ideal. His routine, therefore, was his shield against these challenges. His meditations gave him inner peace. His calligraphy taught him focus. His garden grounded him in nature's harmony. And his mindful martial arts provided disciplined capability without cultivating aggression. These practices allowed him to live authentically, navigating the complexities of his role with grace and quiet strength. He wasn't naive about the world's dangers, but he chose to meet them with a different kind of power. As the day progressed, bringing with it political demands, social gatherings, and perhaps even minor skirmishes of etiquette, Kenji carried his morning's cultivation within him. He was a samurai of peace in a warrior's world, a testament to the idea that true strength lies in integrity and the courage to live by one's deepest convictions. Even when they go against the grain, his journey wasn't about avoiding the fight, but about winning it by not having to fight at all. The constant internal conflict between his personal philosophy and societal expectations defined much of Kenji's life as a samurai. It was a daily struggle between duty versus desire, the duty to his lord and the warrior code, set against his profound desire for peace and his aversion to violence. This wasn't a simple choice. It was a deeply complex ethical tightrope walk that required immense integrity and a nuanced interpretation of his very identity. His duty, or giri, was absolute. As a samurai, he was bound by unwavering loyalty to his daimyo feudal lord and to his clan. This meant being prepared to serve, to administer justice, and if called upon, to fight and even die for his domain. This was the explicit social contract of his existence, a mainstream historical fact that underpinned samurai society. To shirk this duty was dishonorable, a fate worse than death itself. However, Kenji's personal desire, his innermost philosophical conviction, was to minimize harm, to seek harmony, and to avoid bloodshed whenever possible. He found the traditional glorification of combat deeply unsettling. This created a profound tension. How could he fulfill his duty as a warrior, whose very essence was martial prowess, while simultaneously pursuing a path of peace? He couldn't simply resign, as that would bring shame upon his family and potentially endanger his lord. Instead, Kenji sought to redefine his duty, to interpret the warrior's code in a way that aligned with his values. He saw his primary duty as maintaining order and justice within his domain, fostering the well-being of his people and serving as a wise counselor to his lord. He believed a samurai's true strength was in preventing conflict, not just winning. He would spend hours in deep contemplation, often during his morning meditation, grappling with these ethical dilemmas. He studied classical texts, seeking precedents or alternative interpretations of Bushido that emphasized compassion Jin and righteousness Gi over pure martial skill. Quirky tidbit: some samurai, particularly during times of peace, would meticulously create elaborate, non-lethal bamboo training swords shinai for practice, emphasizing skill and discipline without the constant psychological burden of wielding a lethal weapon. Kenji might have preferred such a training method, allowing him to hone his physical capabilities without reinforcing a killer's mindset. His desire for peace was also manifested in his approach to governance. When disputes arose between villagers, or even between lower-ranking samurai, Kenji would exhaust all avenues of negotiation and mediation before allowing any form of physical confrontation. He became known for his fair judgment and his ability to see beyond immediate grievances to the underlying causes of conflict, seeking solutions that would restore long-term harmony. His peaceful demeanor and philosophical depth often disarmed those who might have expected a rigid, unyielding warrior. Historians still debate the extent to which individual samurai could genuinely influence the harsh realities of feudal justice. But Kenji's story represents the ideal of benevolent leadership. This internal battle between duty and desire was a source of constant growth for Kenji. It forced him to delve deeper into his spiritual practices, to find greater inner strength, and to develop truly exceptional diplomatic skills. He learned to articulate his peaceful philosophy in terms that resonated with a warrior society, emphasizing that restraint and wisdom were ultimately greater strengths than brute force. He proved that a samurai could be effective, respected, and honorable without seeking glory in combat. As the sun reached its zenith, Kenji would emerge from his morning rituals, ready to face the day's responsibilities. He carried with him the quiet burden of his unique path, but also the profound satisfaction of living authentically, striving to reconcile the seemingly irreconcilable demands of his birthright and his spirit. His daily routine was his anchor. In this storm, a testament to his unwavering commitment to a life of purpose and peace. Even when duty called for a different kind of resolve, he was a living paradox, a testament to the idea that true strength lies in the courage to be oneself, even in the face of immense pressure. Despite Kenji's profound aversion to fighting and his dedication to a peaceful existence, the reality of his station as a samurai meant that the whispers of war were never entirely absent. Even during the relatively stable Edo period, political tensions could simmer, and the need for readiness, though often theoretical, was a constant undercurrent. We now explore how he prepared for conflict he wished to avoid, navigating this, paradoxed with his unique philosophy. It was like being a virtuoso musician who also secretly prepares for a wrestling match, just in case. His preparation was fundamentally different from his peers. While many samurai spent their days in rigorous, aggressive martial training, focusing on lethal sword techniques, kenjutsu, and battlefield tactics. Kenji's physical training was always framed as a path to self-mastery and inner control, not external destruction. He maintained his physical fitness and proficiency in martial arts, but his emphasis was on efficiency of movement, precise balance, and absolute calm under pressure. He practiced his forms with a spiritual focus, ensuring that his body remained a capable vessel, ready to act instinctively if absolutely necessary, but without cultivating a thirst for violence. This nuanced approach to martial readiness, prioritizing defensive precision over offensive aggression, is a quirky tidbit about some philosophical samurai. His preparation also involved strategic knowledge and intelligence. While he disliked conflict, he was not naive. He remained well-informed about the political climate, strengths and weaknesses of neighboring clans, and potential flashpoints for unrest. He believed that true defense lay in understanding the landscape of potential threats, allowing him to advise his lord on diplomatic solutions or defensive strategies that could avert violence. He was a strategist of peace, meticulously gathering information not to plan attacks, but to prevent them. It was his version of ancient intelligence gathering, focusing on de-escalation rather than escalation. He meticulously maintained his katana, as we discussed. But this was a ritual of respect and readiness, not bloodlust. The blade was sharp, always, because a dull blade was disrespectful to the smith and potentially dangerous in any unforeseen confrontation. But its sharpness was a potentiality, not a desire. If he ever had to draw it, he would do so with a clear mind, acting with the precision and decisiveness of someone who understood the gravity of the act, minimizing harm rather than seeking glory. Historians still debate whether a samurai who truly disliked fighting could maintain the necessary mental edge for combat. But Kenji's approach suggests a different kind of strength, clarity born of self-control. His mental preparation was paramount. Through his daily meditation and philosophical studies, Kenji cultivated an immovable mind, fiducian, a state of profound calm and unshakable resolve that allowed him to face fear and danger without being consumed by them. this inner stability, was his greatest weapon against the psychological toll of potential conflict. He prepared for the worst by perfecting his inner peace, knowing that a calm mind was the most powerful defense. When confronted with aggressive displays or threats, his unwavering composure often disarmed opponents, more effectively than any physical stance. He also prepared by cultivating strong relationships and trust. Within his domain, and with certain sympathetic contacts in neighboring territories, his reputation for fairness and compassion meant that if conflict did arise, he would have the loyalty of his people and potentially allies who shared his values, reducing the likelihood of internal rebellion or betrayal. His commitment to peace was, ironically, a form of strategic strength. So, as the distant rumors of skirmishes or political tensions reached his ears, Kenji would continue his quiet morning routine. He was a warrior who understood the grim realities of his world, but refused to let those realities dictate his inner spirit. His preparation for war was an extension of his quest for peace, a disciplined body ready for defense, a mind clear. For strategy and a spirit unshakable in its commitment to minimizing harm, he was a beacon of serenity in a turbulent age, always ready, but always hoping he would never have to truly fight. The path Kenji chose, that of a samurai dedicated to peace rather than pure martial pursuit, left an indelible mark on those around him, forging a powerful legacy of serenity. His influence wasn't measured in conquests or heroic battles, but in the quiet transformation of lives, demonstrating that true strength could be found in compassion, wisdom, and a profound inner calm. He was a living example that the way of the warrior had more dimensions than just the sword. His most immediate and profound impact was on his own family and retainers. His children, raised observing his disciplined morning rituals, and his empathetic interactions grew up with a different understanding of samurai virtue. They learned that honor extended beyond the battlefield to include integrity, self-control, and service to others. They saw strength in his ability to mediate disputes, his patience in governance, and his unwavering commitment to peace. His retainers, initially perhaps skeptical of his less aggressive approach, eventually came to admire his effectiveness, his fairness, and the deep loyalty he inspired in the common folk. He taught them that a samurai could be both respected and kind, a powerful lesson in a rigid feudal society. This personal influence on his household, shaping a new generation, is a mainstream historical fact, as many enlightened samurai sought to pass on holistic values. Beyond his immediate household, his villagers and the people of his domain were beneficiaries of his philosophy. Under Kenji's benevolent governance, his lands likely experienced periods of greater prosperity and stability. Disputes were settled amicably, taxes were fair, and relief efforts during times of hardship were swift and compassionate. His presence was a calming anchor, fostering a sense of security and trust that was often rare in the tumultuous world of feudal Japan. They didn't see him as a distant, fearsome overlord, but as a genuine protector and a just leader. His actions nurtured a strong, loyal community, a true testament to the power of his peaceful approach. He also influenced those outside his domain with whom he interacted. Other samurai, initially dismissive of his quiet nature, often came to respect his formidable composure and his diplomatic skills. His reputation for fairness and wisdom made him a sought-after mediator in interclan disputes, allowing him to subtly promote peace where others might have resorted to arms. He demonstrated that strategic wisdom and moral authority could be more effective tools than brute force in navigating complex political landscapes. He was like the ancient world's most effective conflict resolution specialist. With a very shiny sword, a quirky tidbit, it's plausible that stories and legends about the peaceful samurai or the philosopher warrior began to circulate quietly among the common people, and even within other samurai clans. These might have emphasized his unusual approach. His compassion for animals, perhaps he rescued a bird caught in a snare during his garden contemplation, or his ability to calm tense situations with just a few words, turning him into a folk hero, embodying a different kind of strength, historians still debate the extent to which popular narratives about samurai genuinely reflected their diverse practices. Versus reinforcing dominant stereotypes, Kenji's legacy was not built on monuments, two military victories, but on the quiet, enduring peace he fostered. It was in the grateful smiles of his villagers, the respectful demeanor of his children, and the stable, prosperous domain he left behind. He proved that Bushido, the way of the warrior, could be interpreted not just as a path of death and combat, but as a profound philosophical journey towards self-mastery, ethical living, and the cultivation of peace as the sun set on his long and purposeful life. Kenji would have known that he had lived true to his deepest convictions. His morning routine, meticulously practiced day after day, year after year, had not only sustained his inner calm, but it also radiated outwards, leaving a lasting legacy of serenity in a world that desperately needed it. He was a quiet revolutionary, proving that the mightiest strength lies in the gentle heart of a truly disciplined spirit. The journey through Kenji's unique morning routine and his life as a peaceful samurai offers profound lessons from the past that resonate far beyond the feudal landscapes of Japan. Story isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a powerful meditation on inner strength, the redefinition of purpose, and the unexpected impact of a life lived with integrity and intention, even when it deviates from societal norms. One of the most compelling lessons is the power of redefining strength. In a world that equated strength with martial prowess and willingness to engage in violence, Kenji demonstrated that true power lay in self-mastery, emotional intelligence, and unwavering inner peace. He chose a path of restraint, wisdom, and compassion, proving that these virtues could command respect, inspire loyalty, and lead to more effective leadership than brute force ever could. This challenges the conventional understanding of what it means to be strong, suggesting that the greatest battles are often fought and won within oneself. It's a timeless lesson applicable to any leader in any era. Secondly, Kenji's story highlights the importance of personal philosophy in shaping one's destiny. Despite being born into a rigid social structure with predefined roles, he actively carved out a life that aligned with his deepest values. His morning routine wasn't just a set of habits. It was a daily reaffirmation of his chosen philosophy, a constant effort to live authentically. This reminds us that even within seemingly unyielding systems, individuals possess the agency to interpret their duties and define their purpose in ways that honor their internal compass. It's a powerful testament to individual conviction. Historians still debate the extent to which individual philosophical interpretations could truly challenge the established norms of feudal Japan. Kenji represents a compelling argument for such agency. The narrative also subtly underscores the impact of peace on prosperity and well-being. While many historical accounts focus on military victories and territorial expansion, Kenji's story emphasizes the quiet yet profound benefits of stable, benevolent governance. His domain flourished not through conquest, but through harmony, fair justice, and genuine care for his people. This offers a compelling counter-narrative, suggesting that true progress and lasting legacies are often built on foundations of peace, justice, and community welfare, rather than constant conflict. It's a subtle but mainstream historical truth that prolonged peace often leads to cultural and economic flourishing. A quirky tidbit that emerges from Kenji's story: the idea that passive deterrence can be more effective than active aggression. His unwavering calm, his reputation for fairness, and his cultivation of fiducian often disarmed potential adversaries without him ever having to draw his blade. This suggests that projecting an aura of inner strength and self-control can be a powerful strategic tool, preventing conflicts before they even begin. It's like a Zen master winning a staring contest against a sumo wrestler, purely through internal composure. Finally, Kenji's legacy is a testament to the idea that meaning is found in how one lives, not just what one achieves conventionally. He may not have a list of famous battles to his name, but his impact on his family, his community, and perhaps indirectly on future generations was immeasurable. His story encourages us to look beyond overt achievements and recognize the profound influence of a life lived with integrity, purpose, and a quiet dedication to noble ideals. It reminds us that true heroism often lies in the daily, disciplined effort to be a better human being, even in the most challenging of circumstances. So as we reflect on Kenji, the samurai who didn't like fighting, we realize that his story is far more than a simple bedtime tale. It's a timeless blueprint for cultivating inner peace, navigating external pressures, and leaving a legacy of serenity in a world that, even today, is often turbulent. His morning routine, seemingly small acts of self-discipline, became the foundation for a truly remarkable life. It's a powerful reminder that stillness can be the source of the greatest strength as the sun dips below the horizon, casting long, peaceful shadows over the land. We gently conclude our journey into the world of Kenji, the samurai who didn't like fighting. His story, a testament to profound inner strength and a life lived with unwavering integrity, now fades into the quietude of the night, leaving behind the profound message of a sleep of the gentle warrior. It's a slumber earned not through conquest, but through the daily, meticulous cultivation of peace. His unique morning routine, those quiet hours spent in meditation, tea ceremony, calligraphy, and mindful martial arts, wasn't just a set of personal habits. It was the bedrock of his existence, the invisible armor that shielded him from the tumultuous expectations of his world. Each deliberate breath, each precise brushstroke, each mindful movement built an unshakable inner core of calm that allowed him to navigate life's challenges with a grace and wisdom that few could emulate. He proved that true power lay not in the ability to wield a sword with deadly force, but in the unwavering command of one's own spirit. He found his strength in stillness, his victory in peace. The echoes of his serene life, much like the soft rustle of leaves in his contemplation garden, continue to resonate. His family, influenced by his example, learned a different, richer interpretation of Bushido, one steeped in compassion and intellectual depth. His villagers, protected by his benevolent governance, thrived in a peace that was a direct result of his personal philosophy. Even rival samurai, initially bewildered by his non-aggressive stance, eventually came to respect his profound composure and his diplomatic acumen. His legacy isn't etched in stone monuments commemorating battles, but woven into the very fabric of the harmonious communities he fostered and the lives he quietly transformed. A quirky tidbit that beautifully encapsulates Kenji's spirit. Imagine a small, perfectly preserved wooden practice sword bakken, perhaps belonging to Kenji, found centuries later in a forgotten storehouse. Unlike the gleaming, often blood-stained katanas of other famous warriors, this bakken shows signs of countless hours of diligent, respectful practice, its surface smooth from use, but bearing no marks of aggression. It would be a silent, powerful artifact, a physical manifestation of a warrior who honed his spirit, not for combat, but for a life of purpose. Historians might still argue whether such a peaceful samurai could truly exist in the harsh realities of feudal Japan, but Kenji's story offers a compelling, hopeful answer. Yes. And perhaps he was the strongest of them all. So, as you drift deeper into your own slumber, take a moment to absorb the profound lessons of Kenji's life. Consider the quiet strength found in self-discipline, the peace that comes from intentional living, and the enduring impact of choosing compassion and wisdom even in the face of conflict. His story is a gentle reminder that the most powerful battles are often fought within, and the most lasting victories are those of inner harmony. Now, as the last whispers of our story fade, and the world outside grows quiet, let the image of the gentle warrior, at peace with himself and his world, guide you into a tranquil, restorative sleep. Dim the lights even further, perhaps a final soft hum from your fan, and let your mind settle into that deep, calming stillness. The wisdom of the past has been shared. Sleep well, knowing that true strength often lies in quiet serenity.